right? So we were discussing about the concept of lexical analysis, and we have seen a few of the concepts that are related with that. So I think we have already discussed about input buffering and basics of lexical analysis. So in our last session, we discussed about the concept of regular expressions, right? So what are regular expressions and what are the terminologies that are involved? So basically, tokens are specified through regular expressions because they're easier to specify patterns, and there are certain definitions that are associated with them, like strings and language, right? So what do you mean by a string? And obviously, it's a collection of alphabet, and alphabet is a finite set of symbol. So all these definitions we have already seen in our last session. Okay, so string is a finite sequence of symbols drawn from a set of alphabet, and a language is any countable set of string over some fixed alphabet. Right. So this is what the formal definition is. Of course, with strings, we have got other definitions like what's a prefix, what's a suffix, what's a string, what is a proper substring, what is a subsequence, so on and so forth. So we've already seen that with example. We also saw what are the possible operations on languages. Majorly, we have union, concatenation, clean closure, and positive closure. Okay, so of course you are familiar with these operations. We also saw an example for those. And when it comes to regular expressions, we have seen that there are two rules that are normally followed by the lexical analyzer while writing the regular expression. They should be using the following two. Like epsilon is a regular expression, that is the language whose whole cell member is an empty string, which means that L of epsilon is nothing but an empty string. Second case is if A is a symbol in sigma and A is a regular expression, and L of A is equal to A, right? So which means that any symbol is going to be a part of the language. That's it. Okay, so we also saw what are the possible operations on regular expressions, and I believe these were the possible laws, uh, associative, commutative, right? So on and so forth, identity rule, closure, idempotent, etc. So we had seen all of these things. And we also saw what are regular definitions. So basically, these are names given to regular expressions. Right? For example, as we had seen in the last session, to have a regular expression for an identifier, which is a letter followed by any number of letter or digit, including underscore. We can have a following regular definition. Like for example, we can give letter underscore as A or B or Z or something like this. And of course, we can give a name to this particular regular expression, which is called as digit. And using letter and digit, I can form a definition for ID, which is letter followed by letter or digit any number of times. Okay, zero or more number of times. Of course, star you already understand. Okay, so one more example for an unsigned number, which can be of any of these forms, can be written as follows. So first, a number is made up of digits. So let us have a digit first. Then number itself is a collection of digits, right? So digit is going to be followed by any number of digits. So that is the first part. Then we might have an optional fraction part, which is defined like this. Then we have an optional exponent part, which is defined like this. May be there, may not be there. That's why we also include epsilon. Then it can be followed by a, right, sorry, this is what we can use in order to form an unsigned number, right? So digits first, then followed by optional fraction part, then followed by optional exponent part. Okay, so this basically gives us the definition of a number, unsigned number, that is. So as you can observe, when we give names to the regular expression, it becomes easier for us to decode it. what exactly this regular expression is made up of. So it becomes easier for us to decode. So for example, if I don't use this notation, then for number, I have to write all of these that are present here. Okay, and decoding that regular expression will become very difficult, right? So that's why it's better to use regular definitions. Okay, so what do you mean by regular definitions? It's a notational convenience where we can give names to certain regular expressions and use them in subsequent expressions, right? So this is what is called as a regular definition. Okay. So some of the extensions or other operations that can be performed on regular expressions are as follows. Like we already are familiar with plus, which is for one or more instances. Okay, so that's what the language does. Then we have one more, which is for 0 or 1 instance. Hello? So this is for 0 or 1 instance, where we call it as the unary postfix operator, so which is question mark. So this basically tells 0 or more occurrence. Okay, so obviously you are familiar with the usage of this one. Then we have the character classes which we are using. So for example, instead of using this notation or this regular expression, we have an alternative of using the character class and write shorthand forms for expressions like this. Okay, so these three are also available. Like we can modify our definition which we had seen earlier using character class like this. So letter underscore, so it can be this, digit can be this. So identifier will become letter underscore, letter or letter star. So obviously the definition of ID did not change, but the definition of letter underscore and digit has actually changed from this format, okay, which is this. So instead of writing it like this, we can specify the range in a character class much more easily. So this is also what we can use while defining our regular expressions. Okay, so this is what about regular expressions are. Of course, you need to practice how to write different kinds of regular expressions. So only by practice you will come to know uh, how easy it is to specify a pattern. Okay. So now let us concentrate on how using the regular expression tokens are actually recognized. Okay, so basically in our previous section, we were concentrating on expressing the patterns using the regular expressions, or basically we were trying to write regular expressions for different patterns. Okay, now we have to look into how we are going to take those patterns and convert them to tokens. Okay, not only that, we will also look into how we can generate a piece of code. Okay, maybe a C like statement that we can actually use in order to perform lexical analysis, right? So for the discussion, we will consider this grammar. Okay, I believe all of you are familiar with the concept of grammar, CFG, context-free grammar, which is written something like this, which says that this is corresponding to a statement. So what can be a statement? So statement is can be an if statement, okay, without an else part, or else it can be an if statement with an else part, or it can be empty statement, okay, or it can be nothing. Okay, then in that statement we have expression. Okay, so what do you mean by an expression? An expression can be something like this. So it can contain a term, okay, a relational operator, then it can contain another term. Okay, so what do you mean by this? I'll explain. Expression can just be a term also. Okay, so it can be this with relational operator, or it can be a term also. So what can be a term? So term can be either an identifier or it can be a number. Okay, now what do you mean by this grammar? It's important to understand. Okay. So of course the statement part all of you might be familiar with. So statement can be either an if statement or an if and else statement. Okay, so you know what are the contents of an if statement are. So some expression needs to be evaluated. Based on that, there will be certain statements that are executed. Okay, so it's an Fortran kind of a definition. That's why we have keywords like then introduced in the grammar. Okay, so let us concentrate on expression. So what is expression? An expression can be, so there can be a term, there can be a relational operator, and there can be another term. Okay, or it can be simply a term. Okay, so what do I mean by this is, okay, before that, what is a term? Term can either be an identifier or a number. Okay, so it means that term is an ID or a number. For example, look at this particular statement. If A is less than or equal to 10, something like this. Okay, so this is the part of the expression, right? So here we have A. A is nothing but an ID, which I can call it as term. So this particular term is present in the grammar. Then we have a relational operator. So this is relop. Okay, then we have another term. So this term is nothing but a number. Okay, so obviously this is clicking all the points, right? Next one is, for example, it can be just a term. Okay, an expression can just be a term, right? So it can just be a term. Okay, like for example, if A, something like this, right? So it can be something like this, right? So if A is true or something like this, A is 0 or A is 1, right? So control will come to the if statement and execute, right? So like this, we can write this grammar. Okay, so it's an if and else type of a grammar. Okay, so we'll consider this as our example. Especially, we'll be concentrating on this relational operator part. Okay, so this is as I said. Okay, so in that particular grammar, there are certain tokens that needs to be identified, right? So what are those tokens, or what are those possible tokens that are going to be used? So let us check. Okay, so the terminal of the see, I believe if you are familiar with CFG, you know that there are VTPS, right? So there are variables, terminals, production, and start symbol. So in this particular grammar, which we saw above, what is the start symbol? Start symbol is statement, right? So what are the production? How many productions are there? One. So this is one production. Statement deriving this. Statement deriving this 2. Statement deriving this 3. Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are around 7 productions in that given grammar. So 7 productions are there. So VTPS, right? So we have looked into T, we have looked into P. So which are the variables and terminals, right? In this particular grammar that needs to be identified. So variables are those that appear on the left hand side of the production normally. Okay. So these things are also called as non-terminals. Right? So they are called as non-terminals. Whereas whatever is remaining, they are called as terminal symbols. Okay, they are called as terminals, right? So in the given grammar, which are the terminal symbols, right? So ID is a terminal symbol, number is a terminal symbol. Okay, apart from statement, expression, and term, whatever has been written, all of those things are terminal symbols. Okay, so for those terminal symbols, what are the patterns, right? So first of all, I'm saying that we are expecting a number. So what is the regular expression for number? We had written previously, if you remember, right? So the same thing has been repeated here. So number is made up of digit, okay, with an optional fraction part, and a exponent part, right? So using the definitions from previous, we have defined number to be this. Okay, what is an identifier? What is an identifier? What is the pattern for this? I know the pattern for this, right? So we will write identifier as letter followed by any letter or digit star. Okay, underscore we have neglected here. Okay, what about other terminals? Okay, what are the other terminals? So there is if. What is the pattern for if? It is if only, right? Because it's a fixed keyword. What is for pattern for then? It is then only. What is the pattern for else? It is else only, right? What is the pattern for epsilon? It is epsilon, empty string, right? Then what is the pattern for relational operator? Okay, now here we have different variations, right? So a relational operator can be less than symbol, greater than symbol, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to or not equal to, right? So all of these are the patterns that we are looking for. So whenever I come across any of these, right? Whenever I come across any of this, then I will identify that these things are seen in the input. Okay, so this is how the Lex basically works. Okay, we can also have other regular definitions, like for example, when we specify an input for grammar, for example, if it is something like this, so I will write that if a is less than b, then something, okay, a is equal to b or something like this. Okay, else b is equal to c, something, right? I have written like this. So you know that I might have given some spaces here. I might have given some enter here. Okay, so all those things need to be recognized. Okay, so we have pattern for stripping out those things because obviously we don't need that. So what is a white space? A white space can be either a blank or a tab or a new line appearing any number of times. Okay, so you know the pattern for blank, right? It's nothing but a space. Okay, tab is /t and new line is /n, right? So we can have a regular definition for these as well. Okay, but our aim is not that. Our aim is to basically recognize the tokens for the terminals. Okay, and here is a table that actually represents when you see the following lexemes, what is the token that we are going to consider or identify, and what is the action that is going to be taken, okay, with respect to the attribute value, right? So anything like in this input, white spaces are not required. They need to be stripped off. So what we do, we don't return them as any token. We'll simply don't have any attribute value for them as well. So then comes if. Okay. So if I find if, see if I find if here in my statement, I have find. Right. So what has to be returned? You have to say that, okay, I have seen an if statement or I have seen an if lexeme in my input. So what is the token that is returned? Token for that is also is the same. Okay, it's an if. So obviously, since it's a fixed keyword, may not have any attribute value with it. Okay. Similarly for then and else. Okay. But when you see an ID, do you have an ID here? For example, A is an ID. This has been recognized based on the definition identifier. Okay. So when you see an identifier, you return that I have seen an ID. But you know that for an identifier, you need to enter those values into the symbol table and you need to pass the pointer as an attribute value. So you will be passing the pointer to an attribute, pointer to the symbol table as an attribute value. Okay, same thing goes for any number that you see. Okay, do you have any number here? We don't have any number here in this statement. So therefore, we will simply pass the identifier values. Okay, what about other things? Relational operators, right? So if you see less than, then obviously it is a relational operator. But the attribute value is less than, because this operation is different from others. Okay, if it is this, then it's relational operator again, but it is a less than or equal to. Okay, if it is equal to, then this. If it is not equal to, then this. If it is greater than, then this. If it is greater than or equal to, then this. Right? So this is what we are supposed to return. Okay, but how exactly are we going to return it? Okay, because there may be a problem here. Okay, if you observe, like for example, let me say that there is less than or b. So this is basically what an expression is. So we have seen an identifier. Okay, here also we have an identifier. This is not a problem for us. But when I look into this relational operator, okay, I'll write it as relog. When I see less than, what should I do? Okay, when I see less than, I know that this is a less than symbol, right? Should I return it right now as it is with values that I have seen a relational operator and its value is less than? So remember that this is the way we represent token, correct? So name of the attribute is, sorry, name of the token is relational operation, and the attribute value that we are supposed to return is LT, correct? So do I do this? Okay, or if I do that, what will happen? Obviously this is wrong, because after less than there is an equal to symbol, right? So obviously I should have waited until I see this particular equal to symbol. Okay, if I don't do that, then obviously I'm sending a wrong relational operator, or I'm returning a wrong token to my syntax analyzer, correct? So this is what is going to happen. So how are we going to ensure that whenever our lexer sees a less than symbol, it does not return it immediately, or it waits until it sees the next symbol in line. Okay, so that is where the concept of transition diagram comes into picture. Okay, Lex does not actually do that. It will wait until it sees an equal to symbol, and it will take this together and it will give it as a token. Okay, so it has been programmed like this through the help of transition diagrams. Okay, I believe all of you are familiar with the concept of transition diagrams. It basically comprises of a collection of nodes, which we call it as states, and there will be a movement from one state to another state, okay, depending upon some input, some form of input. Okay, so that is how we write the transition diagrams. Okay, so in the transition diagram we also have concepts of start state and then end state, right? So all the other states are going to be considered as intermediate states, right? So the same concept is used here, the transition diagram concept, but this time is to identify a token properly. Okay, so this is what we are going to look into now. Okay, I believe I need not explain the basics of transition diagram, because I think all of them are here. But however, how this transition diagram are used, let us just have a look into it. Right? So some states are accepting states or final states, as I already mentioned that we will have start state and then end state. Okay, end state are nothing but accepting our final states, right? So which means that the transition is complete. So this is one thing, and of course I will explain about how lexeme begin and forward are actually used. So these states would actually indicate that a lexeme has been found, although the lexeme may consist of all positions between lexeme begin and lexeme forward. So this is the convention that we are using here. So like for example, when we are scanning some input, okay, like A, B, C is there. So we have lexeme begin and forward. So when we are in an accepting state, we will assume that whatever is in between this lexeme begin and forward, right? So whatever is in between, this is the token or the lexeme for which the token has to be written. So this is what the assumption is. Okay. Next one is, obviously we will indicate the final state or the accepting state using double circle. So next one. So it is necessary to retract the forward pointer by one position. Okay, that is when the lexeme does not include the symbol that got us to the accepting state. Okay, then we shall additionally place a star near the accepting state. In our example, okay, I'll come back to the example later. Okay, so this is when we are supposed to get back our forward pointer. Okay, so when we are in an accepting state, then if we have seen a symbol that is not a part of the lexeme, then we are going to retract the forward pointer. Okay, this is the second case. Third case, one state is designated as the start state or the initial state. Okay, it's basically indicated with start, and the translate diagram would actually begin with the start state. Okay, so now let us look into an example. Okay, so we have written an example for the relational operator, right? So the translate diagram for the relational operator, or recognizing the relational operator. So how to write a transition diagram? So first of all, we need to be familiar with what we are supposed to do. Okay, so I'll go back to the table that we were considering. So this is what the table is, right? So these are all the things that I can come across. So let us start by writing. Okay, let me assume that this is the start state. Okay, this is the start state. So from the start state, what is the possibility? I can come across a less than symbol. Okay, or I can come across an equal to symbol. Okay, or I can come across a greater than symbol. Okay, so symbol, three symbols. First symbol that I can read, which is for less than, equal to, and greater than. Okay, so for example, if I have a less than b, okay, and lexeme begin is here, I will increment forward. So when I read b, I know that it is not a part of less than. Okay, so now we need to retract it back by 1 because we have seen something that is not a part of our previous lexeme. This is what the second point I was talking about. Okay, suppose if it is something like this, a is less than or equal to b. Okay, lexeme begin is here and forward is present here. So when I see this, I know that this entire is a relational operator and less than or equal to has to be returned. In the first case, less than has to be returned, okay, as a token attribute value. Same thing goes with equal to. Okay, here we have only one equal to, so obviously this should not be any problem, so we'll return equal. But if it is greater than, then there is a possibility that it can be either this or it can be greater than or equal to. So in that case, we are supposed to return GE. So this is how our transition diagram would actually start. Okay, so if it is less than, then we might return. Okay, so we'll consider this as the accepting state. Okay, similarly, if I come across this, I'll consider this as an accepting state and I will consider this as an accepting state. Okay, what cases are left out? Less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. Okay, so all those things have been embedded here into this transition diagram. Okay, so not the exact way I had written, but just check it out. So we start with 0. Whenever I see a less than symbol, okay, I will move into state number 1. Okay, similarly, I will start 0, state 0, sorry. When I see an equal to symbol, okay, that's it, right? There are no other cases to handle for equal to. So we will be in an accepting state and we will return that we have identified a token which is a relational operator, and which relational operator it is? It is the equal to. Okay, it is the equal to symbol, right? Next is it can be a greater than symbol. So if it is a greater than symbol, I will end up with this intermediate state called as 6. Okay, I'm just giving some random numbers here to state. So it is 6 and I have to wait until I see the next character. Okay, now what is the case with less than, right? So if it is less than, then I am done, correct? Like for example, if it is the first case, then I am done, right? So what I will do, I will basically, yeah, I will return what? Relational operator and less than symbol. Now there are other possibilities, right? So I might have come across. So if it is not less than, it can be less than or equal to. Means after this symbol, if I see this one, then I have to return less than or equal to, right? So as you can observe, from state number 1, I have already seen less than symbol. So from state number 1, if I read an equal to, okay, if I read an equal to, then I will go with state number 2 and it's an accepting state. I have already seen less than or equal to. So I have identified a relational operator. So I will return relational operator followed by LE. Okay. Third possibility is after this symbol, I might have seen this symbol, which is for not equal to. So in that case, I will be moving to state number 3 and I will be returning relational operator not equal to. Okay. Now same thing goes with state number 6 here. After seeing a greater than symbol, I can see an equal to. So in which case, I will be ending up in state number 7 and I will return relational operator greater than or equal to. Similarly, if I am from state number 6 and I see something else, any other, like for example, if it was A greater than B, right? So this is not the character that I was expecting. So obviously I have seen something else. So if it is other, then I will end up in state number 8 and I will return GT. Okay. Now those states where we have marked as star, okay, this means that we need to retract our forward pointer by 1. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, lexeme begin will be pointing to this one and forward would be pointing to this one. So as soon as forward sees B, we know that it's not a part of relational operator. So we have to return the lexeme. So what we do is we retract the pointer by 1. This does not happen with less than or equal to, because lexeme begin will be here. As soon as I see equal to symbol, obviously from lexeme begin to forward, whatever is there, that is the relational operator. Okay, so only in this case, less than case and greater than case, we will have to retract our forward pointer back. Okay, so that's why these states have been marked with star. You can observe state number 4 and state number 8. So once this transition diagram, I hope this transition diagram was clear, how to write the transition diagram. So once this transition diagram has been written, we can basically generate the code that is required for us. Okay, so how to write that code we shall see. But before that, one more transition diagram. So this is for what? This is for the identifier, right? So we'll assume that the state numbers are a continuation of this basically. So previously for relational operator, we had 8 states. So obviously we'll continue with 9. Okay, from start state, I can see either a letter or digit any number of times. So we'll stay in 10 till that. And of course, if I see anything else, like it may be a semicolon or it can be a space or anything like that, then I know that I have seen an identifier. So what I will return, I will get the token. Okay, basically I will return identifier only, and we will install that identifier into the symbol table. Okay, we'll add that token to the symbol table. So install ID is nothing but entering the values into the symbol table. So this is the action that we are supposed to take when I see an identifier. Okay, so like this you can write the transition diagram for if statements also. Like for example, check this out. This is a sample of generating the transition diagram for the keywords like if, else, then, etc. Okay. Now, how is this different from this one? Because this also contains letter followed by letter or digit, right? So any keyword can also be matched by this particular statement, right? So, however, for identifying keywords, then we can have a separate transition diagram like this. Okay, like T should be followed by H, it should be followed by E, and then it should be followed by N, so on and so forth. And after this, if we have any non-letter or a digit, then obviously it's not an identifier, it's basically a keyword. Similarly, I can write ELSE, where T and THEN is there, and that can be a transition diagram for else. So like this, for whatever keywords you have in your program, you can actually write a transition diagram for the same and ensure that there is clarity. Okay, like for example, in comparison with identifier, we have seen a keyword. So like this, we can have some clarity regarding the same. Okay, so you generate the transition diagram like this for all the things, and once they are done, you combine them together. Okay, combine all the transition diagrams. Like for example, right now what has happened here is state number 0 is there. So if I see less than symbol, I go to state number 1, and then from there I have 3 possible options, correct? So this is one thing. Okay, then we have equal to symbol, then we have greater than symbol. Okay, I will not write the entire transition diagram. So at the start, we can also see a letter, correct? So you can have the identifier part associated here. So letter followed by any number of letter or digit. So or else I can also see a keywords like T, H, E, and then N. Okay, then also I might end with, sorry, this is not the last one. Okay, this is the last one. So then also I might end with a final acceptance state. So similarly, you can also add other transition diagrams. So if I see an I followed by F, okay, then I will come to one more state, and after that, if I see anything else, right, then I will consider that it is a keyword if. Okay, so like this, you keep on adding whatever transition diagrams you have done, you get a large transition diagram, right? You get a large transition diagram. So this is nothing but the transition diagram that is used for identifying the entire grammar. Okay, so like this, you can build your transition diagrams to identify your entire diagram. Okay, now one more example is here. I think you can understand what is the transition diagram is for. So this is basically is for the regular expression number. Okay, so if you remember, we had written a regular expression for number, correct? So it is digit followed by digit, which is basically digits followed by optional expression, sorry, optional fraction, and then followed by optional exponent, right? So how do I write a transition diagram for the same? Okay, I will not write it, anyhow it's here. So it can be something like this. So state number, do not worry, it's a continuation of what we have mentioned here. Like for example, identifier ended at 11. So we have continued with state number 12. Okay, just a transition diagram for number. So 12, so if I read a digit, okay, like for example, let us consider an input and trace the transition diagram. Suppose if the number is 2354, okay, so we start at state number 12, right? So I have read a digit, so I will move to state number 13. So after that I have read a digit, so I will stay in state number 13. After that I have read a digit, so I will stay in state number 13 again. Then I have read 4. Okay, so I will stay in state number 4, 13. After that, let us assume there is a space. Okay, because the number is done here, so obviously there is a space. So I have read something, okay, which is nothing but other. So where I will be heading? I will be heading to 20, state number 20, which is and accepting state. Accepting state means what? I have seen a number. Okay. Now, if for example, if it was 25.20, okay, for a fraction, let us check whether this state diagram works. Okay, 25.20 is the number. 25.20. So first I read a digit. So I will enter from state number 12 to state number 13. So then I'm reading 5. So state number 13. Then I have seen a dot. Okay. So as you can observe here, we will move towards state number 14 now. So dot. So state number 14. So once in state number 14, I have read a digit. So I will move on to state number 15. So this can be any number of digits. So then I have read a 0. So I will stay in state number 15 only. But after this, I have read nothing. Okay, so there is a space. So I have read other, which is not a part of number, which is nothing but our accepting state again, which is 21. Okay. What if I see number like 25.50e plus 2, something like this. Okay, you can trace this out. This transition diagram is going to work for that as well. Okay, so you generate transition diagram like this, either by hand or using some tool to generate the transition diagrams. So once these transition diagrams are complete, you have you can say a layout using which we can generate program for the same. Okay, now once again another transition diagram for white space, which you can look into, but that's not the problem here. We have to basically generate a code or a program that will actually translate this transition diagram into a program. Okay, so that part is what is remaining. So this is how we are going to generate the transition diagram. Of course, I will explain that in the next session. Okay, but this is important, which is the generation of transition diagrams. Okay, so given a regular expression, you should be able to generate transition diagrams for the same, right? So few examples have been given, which I have already discussed. So like this, there may be other examples also, right? So we'll stop here. And if you do have any doubt, then you can ask. Meanwhile, I will take the attendance. Just a second. Okay, so I've taken the attendance. I'll share the attendance link with you as well. Do fill that up. And can somebody ask Muhammad Bilal, face section, to contact me over WhatsApp or over phone? Okay, so somebody who know Muhammad Bilal, uh, ask him to contact me. Right? Okay, if you don't have any doubts, then I'll stop here. We'll continue the remaining part in the next session. Okay, if you do have any doubts, then you can contact me over WhatsApp or any other form. I will see you in the next session. Okay, thank you, students.